In this video, I'm going to tell you one fact for every episode of The Rookie. Let's jump right into it. This is the only time that after the title card is shown, the opening song is played over shots of the Los Angeles area. It also features a longer version of the opening song. In episode 2, Gray tells Nolan once more with feeling, referring to him redoing paperwork. Once More with Feeling is the name of a musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer created by Joss Whedon. Nathan Fillion, who plays Nolan, starred in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The text stuck behind the ATM machine is based on a news item out of Corpus Christi, Texas, which took place on June 13, 2017. A similar scenario was depicted in the Fox series 911 in the episode Stuck, which aired 3 weeks before this episode on October 8th. The car referred to multiple times as a red Honda Civic is actually a Honda Accord. During episode 5, at around 25 minutes in, Officer Bradford is shown to have fired 2 shots from his pistol, but his trigger finger and the gun slide do not move, and no bullet casings are ejected. In the scene where detectives are interviewing Nolan in the break room, harassed is spelled incorrectly on the poster on the bulletin board in the background as harassed. This episode marks the first episode of fan favorite Wesley Evers. In California, first responders can determine the presence of death. They cannot declare death. If an officer determines the presence of death, they will need to give the time. However, a shooting victim is not one where you can determine the presence of death. It only applies to obvious deaths like decapitation, evisceration, or rigor. In the shooting, he would have called for EMS right away, handcuffed him, and started first aid. A mistake appears in this episode when Sasaya calls her boyfriend Vance on her cell phone. Then, a few minutes later, when the police radios and cell phones don't work, she tells Bradford and Chen that there's a frequency jammer in the basement. Therefore, her phone should also have been affected when she made her call. This episode marks the first appearance of Nolan's son, Henry, and Gray's daughter, Dominique. Melissa O'Neill and Jade Payton have previously worked together in the TV show iZombie, playing Suki and Jordan Gladwell, respectively. The episode's title, Redwood, used here to refer to the vice president, has been used for 2 other Secret Service protectees, George McGovern in 1972 and Gary Hart in 1988. On the show's first Valentine's Day episode, Lopez searches Evers' smartphone, wrongly assuming he cheated. This shows that Wesley Evers, a lawyer, has no protection on his phone to stop others from opening it. In this episode, the rookies become the prime suspects after it's discovered a large sum of money used in a drug bust has gone missing. However, all 3 are wearing body cams during the raid and the time sitting with the money. At no time does anyone mention using this video to clear them of the theft. Episode 14 is the first introduction of the concept of plainclothes day. It is mentioned that Angela Lopez and Talia Bishop have had 3 rookies wash out during their plainclothes days, and Tim Bradford has had 11 rookies wash out. In addition to appearing on Firefly together, Nathan Fillion and Sean Mayer both appeared in Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing from 2012 as Dogberry and Don John, respectively. During an interview live with Melissa O'Neill and Eric Winter, O'Neill states that she was not present for recording the scene where the other officers witnessed the captain's death and salute her, due to having to travel to China for a family emergency. She recorded her parts from a green screen separately and was superimposed into the episode. Captain Anderson's tombstone reads Zoe Anderson, February 1st, 1981 to March 19th, 2019. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. This would have made the character 38 years old at the time of death. The date of her death was the air date for her final appearance. A Brady list is a document which the prosecutor's office produces for the defendant's attorney during the discovery phase of trial, which clearly states exculpatory evidence which may exonerate the client, such as the credibility of a testifying officer, which stems from the 1963 decision of Brady versus State of Maryland before the U.S. Supreme Court. LAPD officer William Norcross appears in this episode. He joined the force in his mid-40s in real life and is the inspiration for the backstory of John Nolan. This is the final episode of Afton Williamson as Talia Bishop. She did not return for season 2. Nathan Fillion had dramatically lost weight in between seasons and looked very different between this episode and the last, despite taking place on the same day. This episode is the first of multiple appearances of Harold Perrineau as Detective Armstrong. This served as a reunion for him and Richard T. Jones, as they both appeared together in multiple episodes of Criminal Minds during his 12 seasons. Seamus Dever and John Huertas, who starred alongside Nathan Fillion in Castle, appeared in this episode as part of ABC's cast from the past week. Huertas would later direct the season 5 episodes Crossfire and Double Trouble as well. This episode is the first time that Mechia Cox appears in the series as Nolan New's training officer, Nyla Harper. Gray sums up Harper's character arc as she transitions back into normal life after years undercover.
She spent the last 4 years neck deep in paranoia and adrenaline. I have the utmost respect for her service, but transitioning back into a uniform, that's gonna be a bitch.
West earns his short sleeves at the end of the episode, 4 episodes after Chen and Nolan had received theirs. On January 13th, 2018, a false ballistic missile alert was issued via the emergency alert system in Hawaii, and this episode is based off that. The incident is actually mentioned during this episode and is the only episode based off a real-life event to mention the event within the episode. Nyla puts one of the attackers in a textbook rear naked choke, which is now illegal for officers to perform after a ban put in place following national attention of the George Floyd case several months after this episode aired. Alan Tudyk, who portrays Elroy Basso in this episode, previously starred with Nathan Fillion on Firefly. When West and Lopez appeared at the TV set, West mentions that the Maltese Falcon was filmed there. This is probably true, since there were 4 sound stages used at Warner Brothers in the making of the 1941 film, 6, 9, 14, and 17. 4 of the guest stars in this episode previously appeared on Castle: Michael Trucco, Annie Wershing, Michael Cassidy, and Julian Acosta. This is the second time Annie Wershing has played a serial killer. Her first one was in Castle in season 6 and 7. The house that Caleb keeps Lucy at is also featured in the movie Annabelle Creation. Lopez tells Jackson that fame and police work don't mix, but the next round of rookies includes a reality TV star turned wrong accused murder suspect who is the son of 2 Hollywood power players. As well as the main cast of characters, all participate in a few documentaries about various cases over the following seasons as well. This is Pete Davidson's first appearance as Pete Nolan. Roger Cross, who plays Norman Jengis, previously starred on the sci-fi television series Dark Matter with Melissa O'Neil. The episode's title, Handoff, refers to the identity thief who had his left hand cut off by other criminals. In the intro, Melissa O'Neil was pushed to audition for American Idol. The actress won the 3rd season of Canadian Idol in 2005 at age 17. When tying the tourniquet on the guy who went through the windshield, Officer Chen places the knot on the outside of the man's arm. The knot is actually the part of the tourniquet that's supposed to cut off the blood flow and should have been placed on the inside of the arm, pressing down on the brachial artery. In a change of pace for TV cops, when Bradford talks about moving to New York, Sergeant Gray accurately tells him he'd have to start over and attend the NYPD Academy, then be the John Nolan of the NYPD. Usually, TV cops are shown transferring from one coast to the other seamlessly. When Detective Armstrong directs police officers around Ruben's house before the raid, he lists Officer Jennings, Sanchez, Stapleton, Brady, and Cole. All these names are shared by legacy players for Arsenal FC, the Premier League team in London. Pat Jennings, Alexis Sanchez, Liam Brady, Frank Stapleton, and Ashley Cole. The baseball bat Nolan uses to batter the walls at the end of the episode is the same bat the Unicorn Father used in the pilot. Alexi Hawley mentioned in an interview that the bat had been sitting in his office throughout both seasons. While Sergeant Gray extended Nolan's time in the FTO program as a punishment, an extension is usually used to help give struggling rookies more time to learn the ropes before becoming a P2 in real life. In the aftermath of the revelation that Armstrong had been a mole working for a crime family, new changes are revealed to have been designed and put in place in all of the divisions of the LAPD. For example, any officer requesting a copy of a police report must now get written approval by a sergeant. This is the first appearance of series antagonist La Fiera, played by Camille Guadi. Nathan Fillion is 50 during the time of the filming of this episode. In the beginning of the episode, Doug calls Jackson a millennial. This describes people born from 1981 to 1995. Since this episode is set in 2021, and we later learn that Jackson is 24, which means he was born in 1997, Jackson is actually Gen Z, which this is another timeline issue, as it's not supposed to be taking place in 2021, as the first season takes place in 2018. Talks Olagundoy, who plays Professor Fiona Ryan, is actually an actress from Britain. This is the only episode in the series up to this point where Wade Gray does not make an appearance. Molly C. Quinn played Alexis Castle, the daughter of Nathan Fillion's character Richard Castle on the show Castle. This episode marks the final time in the series in which officers Lucy Chen and Jackson West work as rookies, as they are promoted at the conclusion of the episode. Mercedes Mason makes an uncredited appearance as Captain Zoe Anderson, giving a speech in a flashback video from Officers Nolan, Chen, and West Police Academy graduation. Although Larry Macer is dropped from the training program in record-setting time, he reappears in another law enforcement job, Rail Police, in Backstabbers. This episode is what is known as a bottle episode, an episode set entirely or nearly entirely in one location. This is typically done because of restrictions like finances, but in this case, may have been done in part because of the restrictions of filming during the pandemic. Nolan says that this was his first knife fight, but he was previously in a knife fight in Season 2, Episode 7, Safety at the Hospital. This episode is the last appearance of Titus Mackin Jr. and the first appearance of Jenna Dewan. This is the final appearance of Jackson West in the series. He is shot in the back and killed by a gang member. Later, Sergeant Gray arrests his killer, and Lopez names her newborn son after him. The brief clip of West being shot was performed by a stunt double as Titus didn't want to return. The episode's title, 5 Minutes, comes from Nyla Harper's nickname for Aaron Thorson as a rookie. Brandon J. McLaren, the actor for Elijah Stone, has worked with Jenna Dewan, Bailey Noon's ex-husband, Channing Tatum in the movie She's the Man. During the investigation, Bradford notices that the shelter inside is smaller than it appears from the outside and exclaims,
"Like a reverse TARDIS. What? I don't only watch sports."
TARDIS is the spaceship used by the Doctor in the sci-fi program Doctor Who. The name of the episode, ACH, may be an abbreviation of Anything Can Happen, a phrase used by Gray when describing Halloween and the ensuing chaos. Nathan Fillion and guest star Sean Gunn star together in the Suicide Squad as TDK and Weasel respectively. When Marcus steps on Nolan's leg, he mentions the adductor longus. But the adductor longus is a muscle on the inside of the thigh, not the outside, where Marcus was putting pressure. Matt Letzger, who played Cooper Sanford in this episode, had a recurring role in Castle as Henry Jenkins. He also starred in Season 1 of Narcos Mexico alongside Alyssa Diaz, the actress for Angela Lopez. The actor who played Bailey's husband, Steve Kazee, is Jenna Dewan's real-life fiance. The voice of Skip Tracer Randy is provided by Flula Borg, who co-starred with Nathan Fillion in The Suicide Squad. Becky Cox was expecting her second child at the time that this episode was filmed. Therefore, the pregnancy was written into the show. Romeo Cabarelli is a member of the Arma Dei what the heck? The National Gendarmerie of Italy. The name comes from the French word The name comes from the French word carabinier, meaning soldier with a carbine. Even though Smitty does not appear in this episode, he is mentioned when Leo Thomas explains to Nolan that he stole Smitty's police ID in order to access the police helicopter that he stole. This episode marks Jenna Dewan's first appearance as a main cast member instead of guest starring. This episode was the only reference to Nolan and Lucy's relationship since Tough Love. Thorson's case was inspired by Amanda Knox, who was accused and wrongfully convicted of the murder of her roommate Meredith Kircher. This is one of the few episodes to date that doesn't have the opening title sequence with palm trees and the opening theme of Kings and Queens. Instead, it contains the title The Rookie with the title in red. The actress playing Daniel Bluefield and the actor playing Francis Bloomfield were both part of High School Musical. She was cast as Kelsey and he sang as Troy Bolton. This episode serves as the first part of a 2-part backdoor pilot episode for the Rookie Feds. This episode also marks the final episode of Special Agent Casey Fox. Her character was cut during pre-production of the Rookie Feds and was replaced by Laura Stenson. The character Chris Sanford claims he never been to Hawaii. Kanoa Gu, who plays Chris, was born there. At the beginning of this episode, Tamara Collins, played by Dylan Conrique, is driving and singing along with the radio. The song she's singing along to is the actress's own song. Rosalind Dyer returns in this episode with a marked loss of weight from previous episodes. Presumably, this is due to Annie Wershing's cancer, from which she sadly passed away in January 2023. Becky Cox was genuinely pregnant during filming for Season 4. But Season 5, however, she had already given birth in real life, and therefore had to wear a prosthetic bump for the show. The characters Laura Stenson and Matthew Garza from the Rookie Feds appear in this episode. When Bailey dives underwater, Lucy times her and reveals that Bailey was able to hold her breath for 2 minutes and 37 seconds, which is well above the human average of 30 to 90 seconds. After the traumatic events of the previous episode, this episode marks a happy occasion for John and Bailey as they get engaged. This episode acknowledges many fans' complaints with the Rookies documentary episodes. The director remarks on recognizing Aaron from the true crime documentary, Seen in Real Crime. Therefore, this shows how the cop starring in a documentary episode would be unlikely to be able to do undercover work. The director of this episode, John Huertas, co-starred on Nathan Fillion's previous series Castle from 2009 to 2016 as Detective Javier Esposito. This is the third episode to be presented almost entirely through cameras. The first was the third season's Amber, and the second was the fourth season's Hit and Run. For Chenford fans, this episode is an exciting moment as Tim Bradford finally asks Lucy Chen on a date, marking the start of their romantic relationship. The storyline from this episode is continued in the Rookie Feds episode, The Silent Prisoner. The Naked and the Dead is the title of Norman Mailer's debut novel about a platoon in World War II. Kelly Clarkson made a surprise appearance in the pre-credits scene. This was the result of an invitation extended to her by Nathan Fillion during an appearance by the cast of The Rookie on The Kelly Clarkson Show in April 2022. Xander Hawley, who is the lead singer in the band singing Daddy Cop, is the son of series creator Alexi Hawley. Bradford said, "We all know that as soon as a group of cops get the same tattoo, they are going to prison." In the episode Labor Day, he said something similar to that effect.
Look, you can hang out with other cops all you want, but the second you give your group a name, it's just a matter of time until you're under indictment.
Stacy, played by Julie Ann Emery, was last seen in the pilot episode when Nolan saved her life during a bank robbery. Early in the episode, Charlie Bristow, the security guard hired by Wesley, introduces herself and shares her impressive resume. She claims to have spent 8 years in the SAS, a British Special Forces unit that inspired the creation of the US's Delta Force, though the SAS has only been open to female applicants since 2018. The storyline for this episode is continued on the Rookie Feds episode, Payback. Alexi Hawley, the creator of the series, had a speaking role in this episode as the interviewer. Vivian Stein, who plays Olivia Vargas, was, like her character, 6 years old at the time this episode aired. STR in law enforcement typically stands for short tandem repeats, and is the most commonly used DNA analysis method used in the United States. Nolan mentions to Selena that the reason he always carries dog treats with him on his job is because of a tip from a friend. A likely nod to the late Jackson West, who was shown doing the same thing in an earlier episode, followed by saying that it was a trick that his dad taught him. Luke Moran, who was arrested by Lopez and West in Season 1, Episode 11, Redwood, for elder abuse, returns in this episode seeking revenge against the LAPD for ruining his life. Liseth Chavez is added to the opening credits starting with this episode. This episode marks the 100th episode of The Rookie. In the US television industry, 100 episodes is the usual threshold for a television series to enter syndicated reruns. It is very rare for shows to do this. This episode was co-written by Madeline Coughlin, who previously appeared on the show as Henry Nolan's fiancée, Abigail. The LAPD designates lone officer patrol units as L and standard 2 officer patrol units as A. Officer Chen is on patrol alone, yet identifies herself as Adam 19. When it should have been Lincoln 19, or whatever number is assigned. Nathan Fillion and David Dastmalchian, who plays Ray Watkins, both appeared in the Suicide Squad. This episode is a sad one for Chenford fans, as in this episode, Tim Bradford ends his romantic relationship with Lucy Chen. Jon Snow featured in this episode, and no, I don't mean the character, I mean the guy. Yeah, pretty unfortunate name. One of the plot lines revolves around Bailey being told that she will have significant trouble getting pregnant. However, the irony is that actress Jenna Dewan was multiple months pregnant while shooting that scene. A warrant where the disposition was Nora means a warrant that produced no result, and Nora being shorthand for none. This was Jason Weiler's first appearance in over 2.5 seasons. On one of the recordings for Blair London Sessions that Wesley Evers listens to, the subject is shown to be Officer A. Ugner. Alan Unger is the name of the director from a 2018 Uncharted fan film that starred Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake. This is the third plainclothes day in the series. However, unlike Nolan, Lucy, Jackson, and Aaron before her, Selena's plainclothes day happened after she got her short sleeves rather than before. This episode is the first appearance of Rachel Hall since The Hunt back in Season 2. Detective Lopez refers to Novak trying to do a Ted Bundy killing at a sorority house. A more accurate reference would have been to Richard Speck, who killed 8 nursing students at their shared residence on the same night. This marks the final appearance of Jason Weiler, as Malvado completes his hunt. This is the third Valentine's Day episode in the series, the first being Heartbreak and the second being Exposed. This is the last day that Selena Juarez is a P1, marking her as the 5th person who completed the FTO program during the show's run. Wesley and Lopez's son Jack appears for the first time this season and also speaks for the first time in the series. When Officer Juarez appears to be reading from a file to the 2 patients in the hospital, the focus switches to the file, which contains blank white pages. This is because she is lying about the tests on the patient's wounds that proves they burnt themselves in a meth lab explosion. This episode draws parallels from at least 2 real-world events. The subplot about Grace, Ava, and Charlotte is drawn from the Slenderman stabbings in 2014, but has been changed to mirror AI chatbot horror stories that have started to crop up over the 2020s. The system error is likely drawn from the CrowdStrike outages in 2024. This episode's title is almost certainly a reference to the movie Speed, which this episode shares several plot points with, namely the hijacking of a bus with an explosive device. At the end of the episode, Nolan mentions Keanu Reeves, one of the stars of the movie, who plays an LAPD officer. The social media post where all crime is legal is an obvious connection to the film The Purge. In fact, Tim calls it the Purge Alerts. After the title card, when meeting in Nyla and James' house, Nyla Harper lists officers in other divisions that are willing to join the group to advocate for police reform. She mentions Thorson in North Hollywood, which is referring to Aaron Thorson, who left at the end of season 6. During the flag football game at the end of the episode, Miles Penn is wearing a knee brace that is commonly worn by athletes who had ACL surgery. These similarities are close to the real life of Derek Augustine, as he had to have career-ending knee surgery to repair a torn ACL while playing at the University of New Orleans. This episode marks the 100th appearance of Mekhi Cox as Nyla Harper. This episode marks the end of Seth Ridley's storyline so far, as he unfortunately had his left leg amputated below the knee. This episode reveals that Lucy passed the sergeant exam. She was promoted to Sergeant 1 and is currently assigned to night shift. This is the first and only appearance of Oscar in season 7. Now an escaped convict, Oscar's plot in this episode bears some resemblance to the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. There, the criminal hid the loot under a great big W. On Oscar's map, it was marked with a W. Nice catch. And with that, that was one fact for every episode of The Rookie. Make sure to hype up this video if you're on mobile to show me some love, and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.